meeting for June 9th, 2025. With that, we'll have a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Chair Vasquez?
Here.
Vice Chair Chopin?
Present.
Commissioner Mashburn? Here. Commissioner Byrd?
Here.
Commissioner Harvey?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Williams? Alternate Commissioner Hernandez?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Batchelor?
Any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Chair.
I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. None opposed with that? Thank you. No reason for closed session, therefore no reason to report out. We're now to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak before the commission? I have no cards. I'll give it 1, 2, 3. All right. Item 7, public comment on consent. I have no cards either for that. Any commissioner wishing to comment or pull something off? Nope.
I'll move consent.
Second.
Consent's been moved and second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're now to business items. Item 9A.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vasquez and Commissioners. This item is a result of a public comment that generated a discussion regarding options for recording meetings, which led further to a request to consider creating an ad hoc committee to study the video recording and live stream options. Staff actually currently audio records the commission meetings and publishes the recordings on the LAFCO website. This completely satisfies the California Public Records Act requirements. And actually, there is no law in California to record public meetings. Only if you do, you have to post them. So we do it with the audio recordings, and then we post it within the week of the meeting. But we knew that there was there was some interest in having a video recording or a live stream of our meetings. So we've been researching the video recording and live stream options. We've been surveying other LAFCOs. I've also spoken with the county's Chief Information Officer, Tim Flanagan, and we've worked with Generic, who operates like the wizard behind the scenes here, behind the door for us. So we're gathering information on that possibility. So our recommendation at this point, should the chair or choose to create an ad hoc committee for this media, 2 commissioners be appointed. But if no ad hoc committee is developed or appointed, that we will continue on the same course that we are on to research and outreach and to report back to the commission when we have more detailed information about the possibility and the cost of being able to do it. It's not an absolute that we can even do it at this point for the live stream, so it needs to be researched further. And we're actually trying an audio recording, a video recording today.
Any questions or comments? I just, when you staff continue on researching it, why create another committee just to set up another date for us to meet and maybe hold up the whole process? In particular, the costs, so that the agencies know what it's going to cost to produce it.
We be happy to report back and continue working on this item.
Okay with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's.
Yep. With that, thank you. We'll go to item 9B.
James Marta and Company conducted and completed our fiscal year 24-23 financial audit. The audit reviews the agency's financials, our policies, and our reporting for consistency with governmental agency standards. Also included in the report is the management discussion and analysis. So obviously the question is, what did they find? Well, they found that Solano LAFCO is consistent with GASB standards, and they found nothing else of any concern to report back. Actually, we're going to have Christina, because she did a lot of the heavy lifting on this item. She's going to go over some noteworthy findings that James Marta did share with us.
Thank you. So, as Rich said, we had no recommendations, no questions from them, no challenges, nothing to change. So it was a really good audit. And it was a very in-depth audit, so it actually took a little longer than the last time. So it went really well. The basic findings. There we go. So there was really two that I get from what they informed me everybody really focuses on, and that's one is the net position, and that's essentially the difference between all of the commission's assets, deferred outflows, liabilities, or deferred inflows, and what the difference between those are. And includes ours includes pension and post-employment liabilities. LAFCO does not have any capital assets, and we do not have any restrictions on the net position. So that basically means all the money we have is available for use when it's allocated. And so it throws me off a little bit each time. The audit is for fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, but they look at it in reverse, 24 and then 23. So that's why I'm reporting fiscal year 24 and then fiscal year 23. So 24, it showed a net position of just over $1 million, which was a decrease in the net position of $47,000 from the prior year. And that was, if for those who were here last fiscal year, in 24, that was a year that we moved quite a bit, we reallocated quite a bit of our fund balance into our budget. And so the fund balance, when it gets allocated into our budget, does not show as a revenue, it just shows as budgeted money. And so our net position looks a little bit off, but we had plenty to be able to cover everything. And then in fiscal year 23, that's where you'll see the difference of the net position of $47,000. So it was $1,447,000 and some change, which was an increase from the prior year of $231. That's where that fund balance, we didn't move any fund balance that particular year. And then the other noteworthy finding that is common is the fund balance itself. This is any unassigned fund balance. And it does, there's a whole lot to read in there, but essentially it does include the 20% designated revenue. While it's designated revenue, it's not considered to be restricted funds because it's not identified. For example, development impact fees would be considered a designated revenue because it can be used only, or a reserved revenue because it can only be used for a particular purpose. We don't have anything like that. So our reserve fund is included in our fund balance, and the entire fund balance is unassigned. So in 2024, our full fund balance, which is all cash in hand, was $1.15 million, and in 23 closed at $1.2 million. So a little bit of a difference. Clearly, we spent some money that year. We had quite a few some changes in between, and this kind of explains a little bit about inside the MD&A. I break down the specifics of what happened each fiscal year as far as activities, workflow, work plan, and staffing. But both years saw changes, growth in our staffing, which we very much appreciate. We started fiscal year 23 with 2 people. We were able to grow into a third. And then fiscal year 24, we started with 3 people, and we were able to grow to a 4th. And so we were able to thankfully continue that growth, but we are happy where we're at now. With budgeting, both those fiscal years incorporated fund balance allocations to offset some of the expenses and reduce intergovernmental revenues, which has a direct impact on the county and the cities, which we'll get more into that with the actual budget, what that means. And then as far as projects, the 2 fiscal years were quite busy, as we continue to be. We initiated 5 district MSRs. Actually, I think that was 6, because we also initiated Solano Irrigation District MSR in that same time frame. So 6 district MSRs. Completed several annexations and attachments. We had 9 Fairfield Island annexations that we were able to complete. The in-depth rural North Vacaville Water District annexations and attachments as well as detachments for Solano Irrigation District. And then we did complete special studies and other projects. And one of those really unique ones that we had for quite some time was the out-of-agency fire services contract between Cordelia Fire Protection District and the city of Fairfield. And we also completed the rural North Vacaville Water District's municipal service and their sphere of influence. So they were very busy years and continue to be so. And with that, did you want to finish? Okay, so the recommendation is to receive and review. If you have any questions, let me know. And then to adopt the audit and then direct staff to file the audit with both, we file it with the county as well as with the state.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any comments? No? I don't, anyone from the public wishing to speak on this? I have no cards. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Move with staff recommendations.
Moved to second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 9C. It's interesting when things are clean, how quickly an audit goes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be presenting on this item as this item relates to various compensation issues related to all of the staff members. I'm going to be presenting on this item. What you have before you is a variety of issues. One specifically relates to an update to the Appendix A for the salary resolution. It is a request to modify the salary schedule for the Deputy Executive Officer. The request would change Step 4 and make Step 4 the new Step 1. This is shown on page 2 of your staff report in a chart. This would help address the compaction issues and support succession planning. And so we are recommending that this be adopted, and the recommendation is that it would take effect April 14th, 2025, which is when you last considered this item. In addition, what is also before you is an amendment to the executive officer's compensation, and so the salary schedule would also reflect an increase in the salary range or the salary amount for the executive officer. You have an agreement which provides for an amendment to increase the salary of the executive officer, also effective April 14th, 2025, when you last discussed this, to $207,900, which is a 10% increase. As well, you have in the amendment an increase to the maximum vacation accrual to 640 hours. It was 440 hours. To also address this, it requires an amendment to that Appendix A to delete the reference to the 440 hours. Last but not least, you have a resolution to address a cost of living adjustment for all non-contracted employees. It would be a 3% COLA, and that would be effective July 1, 2025. Happy to answer any questions, and also happy to hand this over to the chair if he would like to add any additional comments. But before you are the action items, which are on the slide above, which is approving the resolution Appendix A to amend the Deputy Executive Officer's salary schedule adjustment and the Executive Officer's salary, and amending Section 4.2 C and G. That, again, is retroactive to April 14th, 2025. You also have the recommendation to approve the Executive Officer's contract amendment 2025-1, also effective April 14th, 2025, and then approving the resolution amending the personnel and salary schedule resolution Appendix A for the cost of living adjustments, which are effective July 1, 2025.
Well, thank you for that presentation. Before I make any comments, or Nancy does, it isn't a public hearing, but I'll call for public comment. I don't have any cards. Nancy, did you want to make any comments?
No, I think you presented it very well, and we had a lot of our questions answered during our closed session. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's taken us a while to catch up, and in particular, the executive officer. When we hired Rich, we were probably at the lower end, hoping that he would prove himself, and he's more than done that. So I think it's, an opportunity to set that right. It was more of to me, more of an equity issue as opposed to increasing the salary just to be increasing it. But with that, is there a motion or any other comments from commissioners? Have a motion to approve the recommendations?
I move to accept this recommendation.
And I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. With that, we'll now move on to item 10, which is a public hearing.
Thank you, Chair. This is actually a housekeeping item that it's now a legal requirement with the budget going forward. Yeah, and we thank Mala for bringing this to our attention because this snuck through the legislative committee of LAFCO. We weren't aware of it, so thanks, Mala. But it did go into effect January 1 of 2025, and this assembly bill requires all agencies to present the status of the vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts at a public meeting, at least once per fiscal year prior to the adoption of the final budget, which we'll be handling next. The intent of this bill is to ensure transparency during the hiring and retention process and to give bargaining units opportunities to hear and speak on position vacancies. This bill applies to LAFCO only because it requires all agencies, whether represented or not, to comply. We have 0 vacancies for fiscal year 26, and there is currently no recruitment process underway. So what do we do if we do recruit? Well, we recruit through LinkedIn, governmentjobs.com, California Special District Association, Cal LAFCO, and through our website, and through the grapevine. Retention efforts include the negotiation of COLAs during the budget process and on behalf of staff that maintain regionally competitive salaries. So we request that you receive the annual AB 2561 report, and no other action is required but that.
Okay, because it's a public hearing, I'll open the public hearing. I have no cards. Does anyone wish to speak on this? I'll close the public hearing. And it requires no action, so we can just move forward? All right, thank you. With that, item 10B.
Thank you, Chair. The Commission is required to adopt the final budget by June 15th per Government Code 56381. The draft final budget before you is identical to the proposed budget that the Commission reviewed and adopted at the April 14th Commission meeting. Like the adopted proposed budget, the draft final budget is $1.6 million. And point out a few things on the slide. 10% of the increase is from salaries and benefits. 10% is from services and supplies. With a general increase of 14% overall. And the other thing that's important to point out is that the fund balance appropriation shrunk because we didn't have as much fund balance to give back to the cities and the county. And why I point those out, because this is going to become integral to the conversations that we've had with the planning directors and with the city and county managers. So we have the total of 14%, the same, exact same that we presented back on April meeting. The major expense drivers within this is the 3% COLA and negotiated salary increases that you generously just gave us, the Cal LAFCO annual conference in San Diego, the work plans, specialized consulting services that we anticipate because there's a lot of high-profile, complicated projects that are on the horizon, and some are starting to gather a little bit more steam. So we want to make sure that we have some money budgeted in there for specialized consulting. We have a new building lease, and we have copiers that go up every year, and we have the plotter that you generously allowed us to secure, which has really helped quite a bit. And again, we have the designated reserve adjustment, and this is offset, the expenses are offset approximately 80% by the intergovernmental revenues. As directed by the commission on April 14th, staff shared the proposed final budget with the planning directors group on May 15th and the county city managers group on May 28th for their comments and to answer any questions that they may have. Christina and I split this up. Christina was responsible for meeting with the planning directors, and I took on the county city manager. So with that, we'll go through the planning directors first, and I'll let Christina handle what she heard.
Thank you. So we agendized the item on the planning director's May meeting. However, through some changes that the group had, they ended up having some sort of tour planned for that meeting after we asked to be on the agenda. So instead, what I was able to do is email all the directors with our information and share it from them. I share it that way to everybody. I did get 2 responses back, and the comments were primarily on the work plan, basically related to updating us on what their project statuses were, where they were moving with things. Couple of inquiries or requests for some follow-up meetings. In fact, I think we have 3 or 4 in the next month where we're meeting with various cities to update or to continue to coordinate with what's going on. So as has been done in the past, we received requests to add items to our agenda, or not to our agenda, but to our work plan, as it related to cities thinking that they're going to be ready for municipal service updates with a sphere of influence update coming into us this fiscal year in preparation for annexations. However, as we have been coordinating with several cities and meeting with them, we have them on our horizon, but don't know if they're going to actually be ready this year. But we are working with them actively, and that's reflected on the work plan. The other question that came up, which is pretty common every year, is the intergovernmental agency split, how that works, where it's coming from, why it is, and explained that it's part of CKH 56381B, and how it's 50% of the revenues that we don't anticipate. Some of it will be coming from projects. Some of it does come from interest. That's our best guess. But then the rest of it is 50% is billed to the county, and then the remaining 50% is proportionally divided up between the cities under CKH. So we had that conversation and then shared that information, at least in its draft form, and we'll get more into that in just a moment. Rich has more details. But that was the gist of the email conversations that we had regarding the planning directors.
Any questions on that so far? No, if not, Rich, go ahead.
So Christina did the planning directors and I did the county city managers. What I did is I shared the budget with the county and the city managers. And as Christina had, no surprise that their comments and questions were centered around the agency billing amount and methodology. And that led to a lot of offshoots of the conversation. And again, you'll be hearing more about the government code as we go through. You've heard it twice mentioned. That'll be mentioned a few more times in my remarks. Kind of the core of what their questions were is, okay, why the increase of 35%? Legitimate question. The answer to that is, remember we told you that the fund balance that we were able to appropriate was a lot less than it was the year before. So who makes up that difference? The county and the city. Last year, we appropriated $425,000 out of fund balance. This year, it was $250,000. So that gap has to be made up in the billing. So that they benefited from our largesse the year before, and this year they had to pay some more because of that, as well as the increase in salaries and benefits and the increases in service and supplies. So we talked about that, and as we kind of stepped through some of the work plan as well, it became a topic of conversation about, well, we're concerned about a return to source on expenses. And what I mean by that is, hey, I'm paying for your special districts. That's not right. Well, the cities believe that.
No, the county's paying for the special districts. That's why we pay 50%.
So we also, or I also had to remind them that when we look at things, it's a regional. And LAFCO is responsible for the regional approach. So that developed its own little conversation, and it doesn't work when we have to turn around and bill just them for some time when we work on their program. That's not the way that LAFCO was set up, and it's not set up that way in the law. In 56381, that is not the methodology. It is clearly spelled out in 56381. And knowing that, I brought it with me, and I made sure that everybody had a copy. And a couple of cities, I gave them 2 copies. I'm thinking maybe the second one was easier for them to understand. It just, in the methodology is in there. And, you know, I'll show you a slide real quick. Here's 56381, and it outlines how we arrive at the numbers and how we do the split according to the cities in the county, with the county paying the 50% and the cities paying their 50%. And then how it breaks down for each city, what we base that on. What was difficult for them to understand was that the figures are based on 23, fiscal year 23, because it's based on what the state controller has released as far as income to the cities. And the most recent they have on the website, and I looked at it the morning I was going to the meeting, is fiscal year 23. And it's still the same because we looked again while we were working on this. So it was good. It was a healthy conversation, and it really launched into a lot of good topics that some of the newer city managers really haven't looked at. And it was all stimulated because it's a large increase of 35%. But it's explained, it was laid out, it's in a sense codified, and people said okay. And the other thing is the work plan, we talked about that, and that the work plan is flexible. It's not written in stone that if someone's ready to bring something forward, yes, we can do that. We can move certain things as they come in. It's not concrete that the work plan is. It's our best plan, what we have for the year. And as I said, I also reminded them that LAFCO is a regional agency and that the commission is, hey, we're comprised of city mayors, county supervisors, and the public. And it's already been adopted, the budget. So we had a good conversation. I thank the city and the county managers for their comments and questions. And I offered that perhaps LAFCO should be invited to attend their meetings, particularly given the volume of the projects with regional impact that are being considered. And I think they were going to talk about that. In conclusion, we recommend that you review and consider public testimony and approve or approve with modifications the 2025-26 final budget and work plan via the adoption of the attached resolution that's in your packet, and that you direct us to distribute the final budget to the cities the county, special districts, and the auditor per Government Code 56381.
That's it, Rich?
That's it.
I don't have any cards, but I'm going to go ahead and open up public comment. Anyone wishing to address the commission on the budget itself? Again, I have no cards. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Take it back in the hands of the commission. Any commissioner comments? Yeah, go ahead, Alma.
I do have a question. How early, when we're seeing that there might be an increase on the estimated fees for the cities, how early do they know? Is it around mid-year, or is this the moment that they would find out?
This is typically the moment that they find out, because we have to build our budget first in order to see what the gap is that needs to be filled according to the state by the cities and the county.
Okay, I'm saying, I asked because I'm seeing some cities like Vallejo, for example, with a $58,000 increase from, as a differentiator from last year to this year's. And so as they're building their budget, I just can imagine what that means to kind of incorporate. So I just also.
No, it's true. I can see the position. When you see the adopted or the proposed budget and the draft proposed budget, that's when we start having a clear understanding of what the situation is.
Okay, perfect. So I agree
So
with.
April.
Yeah, I agree with the earlier conversations of them, just as you mentioned, that they're invited to the meetings, that you're invited into those meetings earlier so that you can have those conversations in there as they're building their budgets, especially starting in mid-year timeframe, right? And then the second question I have is, just to check my own understanding, as cities increase their projects, 'cause I saw the work plan, things that I appreciate about it, it's very clear about which are priorities, which are low. So that was easy to follow. It also provided just the overview. As work plan increases, the cost to do business, the cost for LAFCO increases. So that's offset by that city or that project or that special district over time? Or how do we, as a year flows and we might potentially add something, how does?
If it's specific to a project, we do keep a sheet and how much time is going to be involved in that project and what we've spent. And then we've got a deposit that we work off of until they start exceeding the deposit. So that's how we work in that aspect. As time goes on, we're in more conversation with the cities. We've got a fee for an application. We look at the application, and then it starts moving. Because if there's more work involved because the application's not complete, things like that, it heightens the price.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll leave this as a future opportunity to circle back. At some point, you as our executive director will identify if there's a need for additional staff to support work plans as they might potentially increase.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm sorry, anything else? Not, can we have a motion? We didn't do that right yet. Not yet. A motion to approve the budget?
I'll move we approve staff's recommendation on the budget.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes. John, did you want to leave? Did you want to leave now? Or do you?
Yes, that'd be a good time.
Yeah. Just correspondence anyway.
Thank you.
We'll let the mayor take a moment here to, he's got another engagement he needs to get to, so. And we have no correspondence, and then with that, we'll move on to executive director's updates.
Thank you, Chair. We're actually going to have a couple of more items that aren't on the list that you're going to see. But we'll just go down the list here. The cities with Vacaville, as the mayor of Vacaville steps away. Oh, there you go. Hey. Shooting, I was going to talk about them. Yeah.
All good things, all good things.
We are working with city staff, and I note that Aaron's in the room with us today, and we appreciate that. We're working with the city staff and EPS, their consultant, concerning their MSR, and we'll be meeting with them actually tomorrow. With Dixon, we've listened to the city council discussion on the Harvest Development Project, and we have scheduled some pre-MSR meetings with Dixon and their consultant, AP Triton, for June 18th. We've also had an inquiry from Vacaville concerning an unincorporated area, and I'm going to jump the slides here real quick. You'll see it on the screen. It's by,
Wasn't from back.
oh, it's not Vacaville, I'm sorry. It was from the property owner themselves, right outside of Vacaville, by the church project. There's some conversations going on about that. Did you want to share anything else on that?
So I received it was a counter inquiry that came in from the property owner. It's a new property owner. He purchased it this year. He is trying to figure out how he can go about getting an out-of-agency service connection for sewer. He wants to build a Sikh temple on the new property, and he spoke with the county to figure out if the county can do anything about it. County mentioned that there was a potential for an MSA, a municipal service agreement. He spoke with supervisor, who I guess also mentioned the possibility of a JPA. So I clarified that a JPA it does not involve LAFCO. That's directly between the county and the city, and the two parties have to agree to that. He said he also spoke with utilities, Vacaville Utilities, who told them that they don't do out-of-service agency agreements. So JPA, again, that doesn't include LAFCO. But I did inform him that in terms of LAFCO, under 56133, we are prohibited from permitting an out-of-agency service agreement under our purview for a new development. There are other limitations. If it were an existing development that has a failing septic, and there's an emergency need for health and safety reasons, or if there is a clear agreement and path moving forward for annexation, and the property owner stated that they did not want to annex. So with that, LAFCO we're prohibited from approving an out-of-agency agreement. So anything moving forward would have to be done between the county and the city, or just through the county.
All right, thank you for that. That's one of the things, through the chair, that I needed some clarity on, because we as a county changed our policy and amended our general plan so that we could have this type of agreement with some of the municipalities, with Dixon and with Vacaville, because both of the developments that they're talking about wanting to do in northeast Vacaville and up on the northeast side of Dixon, the county has interest there, and the county is going to need connection for those. And we specifically changed our policy to be able to do some of those things. If we don't do it through LAFCO and we have to do it through a JPA, then we need to do it through a JPA. But if we don't, then everybody's just spinning their wheels, because if the county can't get those connections, then the county doesn't really have an interest in moving forward in any of those projects, as far as I know.
Yeah, so the intent for LAFCO, we're trying to do the regional coordination. We're the watchdog of the region to make sure that things are orderly, planned and developed orderly. And so one of the intents under 56133 was to prevent those weird out-of-agency connections, because it can cause problems, and has in the past in other counties and other regions. So with the intent of, you can annex, or unless there is.
We're not precluded to do that through a JPA, though.
Correct. Through a JPA, we're not involved, not our monkeys.
Okay.
I'd also like to add, and it's dawned on me while I'm sitting and listening to this conversation, we'll take it up with the city staff and internally. I'm thinking there may be another option. But what LAFCO is concerned about is that this would be an island that would probably remain an island because then then yeah, it's not a LAFCO move, but there may be one. So I think there's yet another
Yeah.
option that we may look at.
I understand, and if you look at this particular piece of property, and you look how, just at this picture, and you can see that those places that are hash lined in this are technically an island by LAFCO standards because they are surrounded on three sides by
Right.
city. So it's already an island, and has been for a lot of years now. So it's a continuation of more of the same.
And I'd look forward to maybe talking about another, an additional option.
Go ahead.
Just because I'm in the learning mode. When you have an island, do the members, though, have to agree to be included in? So that, okay, just confirming that that's,
Well, they don't necessarily
There,
have
have
to
to be
agree, but they can't protest.
okay.
The protestability is gone.
So if it's an island, they can't protest.
Oh, they can.
They can, and it's the same, 50,
No, you can, that's
You
what
can come
makes,
over here and protest, but it's,
yeah, that's why the island, because I mean, let's put it in perspective. If the cities really wanted them, they wouldn't be an island. So islands typically exist because they're less than desirable at some time. So there has to be some incentive or a carrot or a stick. And the stick is basically that if it meets the island definition, you cannot protest. You can disagree, but you can't protest.
right. And then does the city, let's say the city then takes it in, then,
What you're protesting is, I'm assuming, is an annexation.
and so the cost associated to provide that service is then distributed amongst the city residents, once you've included that land in?
I can give an example, because when I worked for the city of Vacaville as a planner, we did a couple of annexations where they would have created an island, and so it was essentially what we as a city planner called a forced island annexation so we didn't violate CKH. And essentially what happened was the property owners who did want to develop and wanted to annex in, specifically this is Southtown, is the most blatant example. They wanted to annex a chunk of land, but north of it there were 4 or 5 properties that were privately owned still and weren't interested in participating and didn't want to annex, didn't want to build, didn't want to change. But it violated CKH to be able to annex and create that island. So the city annexed those lands as well. And it was the parties who wanted to annex that then footed the bill for the annexation and for all the other detachment fees. And then when those properties, the forced island annexation areas were annexed in, they were annexed in as ag. So they could continue to do what they were doing so long as they wanted to do that. And then when, more recently in the last couple of years, those properties were then purchased by a developer who is now going through or has already gone through a general plan amendment and a zoning amendment to then develop it. So those properties came in but operated as they were completely. They had a well system, they had a septic system, they didn't connect until someone else wanted to. But it was the Southtown development that wanted to annex, and so they paid for the annexation of the whole property and any detachment fees.
I see, thank you.
anything else?
Continuing on, and it's not just Vacaville, Fairfield has something brewing too that I did talk with the city manager about briefly. And that's a property that is Rancho Solano North. And I believe that was the property that was on fire, not too far from my house, that we could see it. And Lewis Holmes has contacted us regarding this. And one of the issues with this property at this time, and that we'll be sharing with Lewis, is that the general plan that Fairfield just accomplished doesn't include it.
And it's my understanding that a large portion of that is under conservation easement, correct? And what's not under conservation easement
Yeah.
is watershed,
Watershed, yeah.
which can't be rezoned because of water quality issues and regulation regarding water quality, right?
We didn't look that much into depth into it yet because right now it's a speculative project. They're asking us what the process would be. Presumably, if they were to annex into the city, they would annex and use city water as opposed to lower quality well water that's out there. So it would allow that to be developed. But there does require, that does require the sphere of influence update process, which means they need to talk to the county, they need to do their MSR update, and then they have to change their sphere and their general plan.
The problem would be that that would be considered, that, it's just like in some parts of Pleasant Valley, up in Gates and Mix, up a Blue Ridge, all that, and out in Suisun Valley, Green Valley area, that's all watershed. You can't build on it. You can't develop it. That's state regulation because of water quality. All the water that rains down on these hills flows down into this creek, which is a natural creek, runs straight across over behind Paradise, and then runs out into the Delta side. So I do not believe, and check it, but I don't believe that you can build on that watershed up there.
So that is a land use question. That would be left to the city to research and develop and figure out how they're going to do it. We're just looking at, what would if they wanted to move forward with annexation, what would the municipal service sphere of influence and annexation process be?
I'm not sure there's the conservation easements on it.
I thought that 185 acres sat vacant out there and sold.
No, that was the old Mario Sungo property. Mario Sungo was the one that wanted to build the agricultural museum out there in the 80s. I think it's still owned by one of his children, if not two, and it's been up for sale for a number of years. I know that the land trust looked at it for as a proposed green belt, because the Fairfield-Backville green belt doesn't cross over 80. It ends up there just above Paradise, so there's no green belt on the other side, except if you were to tie it into Rancho Solano. But just given the new fire maps, I don't know how far up the hill you could go. But anyway, that's
No,
it's all part of due diligence, right?
right, and it starts growing legs, then we'll definitely be researching a lot of that type of information.
All right.
So to get back to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think John is correct, but you probably need to get in touch with, or somebody needs to contact Tracy Ellison. She does all the agriculture conservation easements, just to verify if any of that property is in an easement. Because if it is, that makes it very difficult to move forward on.
Thank you. So Cal LAFCO memberships, I know we talked a little bit about it last time. There's been 3 more agencies dropping out of Cal LAFCO. 7 agencies total at this point. They called and asked where we stand, and I said it's in our budget. It's only about $8,300. I think the work that we get out of them for the Ledge Committee is worth that. There's some discussion still going on about the San Diego meeting, and we'll keep you updated on that, and we'll continue to monitor. But my recommendation is that we don't pull out. The office relocation, we've been told it's June 9th, or June 10th, excuse me. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the fine print, and it does say 2025. So we do notice that all the furniture's not in, and we haven't heard from General Services about moving us tomorrow. So stand by. But yes, exactly. So when we do, we'll invite everybody to come through for a walkthrough.
Well, as they say, stand by, film at 11.
Yeah. One of the items that's not on here that is important is Senate Bill 777. And this one could end up coming into our backyard here. There's a lot of discussion regarding this Senate bill. It's a measure that would require LAFCOs to direct local agencies to assume responsibility on abandoned endowment care cemetery. And yeah, there's a lot of hubbub amongst the LAFCO agencies, in working with Senator Richardson, I believe, is working on this. So what is an abandoned district? It's a cemetery. It's a cemetery that had an endowment care fund. It's formally licensed by the Bureau, but had its certificate of authority canceled, surrendered, or revoked. A new cemetery authority doesn't take ownership of the cemetery with 1 year of the lapse of its certificate of authority. Then the Bureau notifies the applicable LAFCO that there is an abandoned endowment care cemetery in the county. And LAFCO must identify a local agency within the county to take over care, maintenance, and embellishment of the cemetery. Skyview Memorial Lawn in Vallejo. There may be someone that's interested in acquiring it, but in a matter of time, if they don't, it could be coming to us. So it's, yeah, a lot of the LAFCOs don't want any part of this.
City.
And I did see an email that came across our desk that said that Senator has no interest in writing in that the city or the county would be the people that inherit it. So it's going to end up, we're going to have to look for a cemetery district to take it on.
If it couldn't afford itself, we're going to give it to somebody else.
That's what everybody's asking the question, and I think the answer to that is yes.
And it wasn't an endowed cemetery to begin with, but it ran out of money, as opposed to one that wasn't endowed.
That's the assumption for most
Wow.
of the EOs, that why they're now abandoned, because they're out of money and can't afford to keep up and easier to walk away.
Where it sits right now is it made it out of the Senate committees and out of the Senate floor, and it's now going to Assembly. So Cal LAFCO and us are babysitting it and watching.
And that's
it.
both private and public then?
It's
Yeah.
any
Any
endowment.
endowed, so-
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
okay.
part of it stems from there are 5 or 6 statewide that were shut down for fraud, that were endowment. And so the question is, where are they supposed to go? And the court process is quite lengthy, and it's voluntary for someone else to take it over. So they're trying to fix that and make us the bad guys. They were supposed to make some changes under Cal LAFCO's conversations. So we're waiting to see if those occur.
Well, that's the difference between the public and the private. The public cemetery has to open its books, and it has to be to the public, where a private cemetery, they could hide the losses for a long time. And they do, and that's what happens. But yet they're supposed to be an endowed cemetery.
Yeah, there's LA is fighting this, the LA LAFCO. They really have an issue with it. Right now, Cal LAFCO's in a neutral position, which we're a little, we're not quite sure that that's where we would recommend to be, but that would be an item we bring back and talk to you folks about.
So Vallejo has one private cemetery, and Benicia has cemetery and the military cemetery, don't they?
Well, and they have a city-owned cemetery.
Yeah, the city-owned cemetery.
Interestingly, no district.
Yep. But that's something we don't look at anyway, because it's a city cemetery.
Right.
But
You may look, the city should look at it in their MSR, but
But given the potential shortcomings for Benicia, there might be something that at least should be put out there to kind of maybe look at.
Yeah, I know that there's some fire discussions too. Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that, our next meeting is August 11th. And when the office is up and in better shape, the new office, if you're all still on the board, we'll invite you all over. It's your office.
All righty, with that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting until our next meeting, August 11th at 10 a.m. here.
This meeting is no longer being recorded.